All right, hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in once again to the Black Box Podcast. BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Now, Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts has been in the news a lot lately. For what reason could that be? Well, the possibility of running for president in 2020. This is one of the underlying themes that we've been doing on this channel, and I swear that tomorrow we're going to get back to some different subjects. But right now, let's talk about Senator Elizabeth Warren and the possibility of going up against Donald Trump for the office of President of the United States. What really are her chances? Well, we can definitely say that this is something that she seems to be very passionate about now. She visited Sioux City, Iowa. She's going to be touring the state of Iowa, and then I guess moving on to New Hampshire, going to be trying to promote herself for the presidency. And can she win? I have a few things that I would like to throw out there. I was talking about this with my family, who is very, very Democrat leaning, and what they were saying is that they don't think that Elizabeth Warren has the likability to defeat Donald Trump. They don't think that she can do that. My first response to that is likability does not determine everything when it comes to the presidency. I think it is a fact. I think what actually would kind of put people up there is a combination of charisma and solutions. I mean, that is so much more important than likability. When I was much younger, I would really look at candidates, and I would think like, well, how much do I like the person? Well, that's just not really what I'm thinking about now. I just want to know, I mean, charisma is important for persuasion, but you also really have to listen to the solutions that they are proposing. And we always have to bear in mind that whoever is up there for the nomination, they're probably not going to be able to put all of their plans into action with a divided Congress, which we will always have in my lifetime anyway. But when it comes to Elizabeth Warren, she is somebody who actually does have, a certain amount of the Democratic Party against her and a certain amount of the Republican Party, which is very big, against her as well. Can she really win a general election against Donald Trump? What I said my very first ever political upload on this channel was I really felt that Elizabeth Warren should not be the nominee for the Democrats for 2020. What I thought would happen is that she would be catapulted to the top because she is somewhat of a well-known name among the Democratic contenders. I mean, we're talking Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and they might have, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Eric Holder. For some reason, his name is on the list. I think Eric Holder would be a terrible choice. But back to Warren, I think Elizabeth Warren would be catapulted to the top because of her name recognition. Most Americans who are going to vote know who she is. All Americans who are going to vote in the 2020 election know who she is. And you might think that that's like a silly statement. It's not. Not all Americans know who Andrew Yang is. I've done like 9 uploads on Andrew Yang and his ideas on this channel. Not all Americans know who Tim Ryan is. Not all Americans know who Jeff Merkley is. Everybody knows Elizabeth Warren. And I think that that's really going to help her rise in the polls. She's going to have a lot of star power behind her. But what do we really think of her chances? Well, a lot of people are going to trash talk her. They're going to throw a lot of mud at her. They're going to bring up the whole Pocahontas stuff. Donald Trump loves to call her Pocahontas. And, I mean, there was a meme going around on Facebook saying that Elizabeth Warren's Native American heritage was only 1/1024th Native American. I actually don't know if that's exactly true. I think it's actually a greater percentage than that in reality. But the point is, she doesn't really have a lot of Native American blood in her DNA. But here's the thing, though. I mean, we're only human, right? I mean, I don't really hold that against her at all. If what she says is true, it's like her family told her that she had a story about, she had a Native American ancestor, and it turns out that that is somewhat genuine, like a single ancestor. Okay, I mean, whatever. That doesn't really represent someone's, qualities when they would become to running a country, whether or not they had one Native American ancestor or 3 Native American ancestors. That does not represent, their abilities to lead and to organize. And, what would be some reasons why the Democrats would not want Elizabeth Warren? She is a liberal. She is a Democrat, but not a lifetime. She was a Republican for much of her early years. She comes from an academic background. She definitely is going to be very loud about a lot of issues. She took a stance against the Dakota pipeline, although too late in the game, mind you, but she was very pro ecology, anti oil, all these things that the Democrats like to hear about. What would be something that would make the Democrats think, I don't want to vote for Elizabeth Warren? Well, I was listening to the radio a couple months ago, and someone just put out that they put out the idea that Bernie Sanders has better poll numbers. And Bernie Sanders seems to be what a large portion of the Democratic Party wants instead of Elizabeth Warren. They would view somebody like Warren as too centered, whereas Bernie Sanders has kind of reignited a new conversation in America. I mean, we're just going to see more people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez who are coming relatively similar in the footsteps of Bernie Sanders. I mean, Elizabeth Elizabeth Warren just isn't there yet. I mean, she's definitely more of what I guess what you'd call a center-left Democrat, but a lot of people are going to become very critical on her. They're going to think that she's not taking strong enough stances on things. I mean, groups like the Tax Wall Street Party would be like she's not loud enough about the Wall Street sales tax. The Democratic Socialists are going to be like she's not Bernie. But I think from the radio that they were saying was, why go with Warren? Bernie is leading her in almost all the polls. And their mission for a lot of Democrats is to take out Donald Trump. They want to remove Trump from the Oval Office. And they're like, Bernie Sanders could be the best way to do that. And if they don't want to go with Bernie Sanders, they could go with Joe Biden. I did an upload on Joe Biden a long time ago about the possibilities of Joe Biden running for the presidency. Once again, I'm at the point right now, coming at this from sort of an outsider perspective, but I would just think that the Democrats need some new blood. They need like something different. And they had all this talk for years about getting away from the sort of establishment. Well, Joe Biden is the establishment. He was a senator since the 1970s, the vice president under Obama. He is the most well-recognized name for the Democratic Party, but at the same time, he's an establishment Democrat. The problem with Elizabeth Warren is she has become an establishment Democrat. I mean, I've talked a lot on this channel about some other Democratic contenders for the presidency, like I mentioned Tim Ryan and Andrew Yang. I think that they could contribute a little bit more to the actual dialogue and conversations going on, as opposed to somebody like Elizabeth Warren. I mean, we're going to be talking about the stuff that Tim Ryan has put forward, teaching mindfulness and mental awareness in our schools. Andrew Yang, universal basic income coupled with Medicare for all. These are things that the Democrats can really explore. And not to mention Bernie Sanders. Like, I'm not a diehard Bernie Sanders supporter. I mean, I can't even say he's my guy. It's like, but what I would say about Bernie is that he has ignited the crowds. People want the message that he is saying. Like, a lot of the Democrats really wanted, the message that Bernie Sanders is putting out. But we do have to bear in mind that Bernie Sanders is going to be like 78 years old, if I recall correctly. Don't quote me on that, but I think he would be 78 years old when he would be taking the oath of office if he were to defeat Donald Trump. I know that he's in good health, but it's just like, I mean, that's getting up there. And we would need to bear in mind those things. I mean, we already had the oldest president in history currently in the Oval Office. When it comes to Elizabeth Warren, it's like, does she have what it takes to defeat Donald Trump in the general election? If the election were held today, right here, right now, I would say no. I don't necessarily think that she has the ability to defeat Donald Trump in the election. I think she's going to come at it swinging. But it would really depend on how well the Democrats can mobilize their voter base and how they can pull the non-voters in to vote for somebody like Elizabeth Warren. Non-voters won big in 2016. It's like, I believe that the largest demographic of the registered voters just did not vote. Over 40% of registered voters just didn't show up at the polls, and they took the election away. It's a really tricky system, and it's really going to be down to the wire. But I'm still standing by my initial prediction that, if we were to have an election between Donald Trump and Elizabeth Warren, that she would come very close, and I mean very close, in terms of the popular vote and the Electoral College. But she would not win. It would be 4 more years for Trump. I don't see her as the successful champion to take on Donald Trump. But like, there's another thing that we always have to bear in mind, and that's it's going to be a tough Democratic field. We've already talked about Bernie, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, maybe Eric Holder. I don't know why they put his names on the list. He must have a lot of money behind him, or it's just some sort of scandal in cahoots, like he's just there to pull votes away from somebody else. I can't ever imagine Eric Holder being the nominee for the Democratic Party. And then what they're going to do is they're going to be kind of dividing the party even more. It's like right now the Democrats do not have a single leader, and they're going to be somewhat fractured. It would be great if they had somebody that they could all get behind. And I think that they're kind of trying to use Alexandria Ocasio Cortez as the person of the future. She'll be the future of the Democratic Party. And I thought that was a bad choice because that neglects the present. We very well might see Alexandria Ocasio Cortez as the Democratic nominee for president in about 8 years or something like that. But I don't see, well, I mean, it's not possible now. She's too young to be president, can't even be a senator. She was only 29 years old at the time of this recording. So it's like we just we just have to look at this from a standpoint. The Democrats are a little bit scattered. It's not exactly broken. So maybe I spoke too soon when I used the word fractured. But the thing is, they are scattered and they don't have a single leader to get behind. It's not Nancy Pelosi, it's not Maxine Waters, it's not Barbara Lee. And even if we look at the sort of people that would be supporting Bernie versus the people that would be supporting Elizabeth Warren, the people that are going to support Elizabeth Warren are going to be much closer to the center. The people who are going to be supporting Bernie Sanders are going to be much farther to the left, much further to the left, excuse me. So what does that mean? That's why it just tells me this is just going to be a repeat of Hillary versus Trump, except instead of the name Hillary Clinton, you would substitute it with Elizabeth Warren. And I don't really think that that's going to be the best political decision for anybody. I mean, like, even for somebody like Donald Trump, he's a showbiz guy. He wants to get better ratings than just putting on reruns. And I'm not saying that as any sort of joke. I mean that genuinely. So what do the Democrats do? Well, they would have. I'm not part of any of that. Like, I've never been welcomed to a Native American tribe. I just had a little bit of ancestry, and that's all it was. And like, all right, fine, let's put that aside and let's move on to the future. And like, she seems like somebody who's being a staunch activist for progressive causes. But the thing is, she has spent a large portion of her career as a Republican. I believe she switched parties somewhere in the mid 90s. She switched from being a Republican to a Democrat. Bernie Sanders is also mostly just an independent. He runs as an independent senator for Vermont, and he caucuses with the Democrats, but he is an independent. So it's like, once again, though, I mean, is that really what voters are going to turn to? Like, are voters going to be thinking about that stuff? When you hear, like, debates on the radio, or, like, people, doing the call-in shows, people call into the radio shows, they bring this stuff up all the time. Americans are talking about this. I would say that. And the radio host would always be like, no matter what program it is, they're like, no, it's not important. No one cares that Bernie's an independent. No one cares that Elizabeth Warren used to be a Republican. But people are discussing this. And it's like, a lot of people probably have some sort of kind of impact and influence. And a lot of people probably are kind of thinking about it. It's like, wait a second, is this person really what I want to vote for? It's the age-old debate. What do you want? Do you want a candidate that you agree with, or do you want a candidate that can win? What the real answer to that is obviously somewhere in the middle. It's just the way that people debate it out. They're just like, what are their chances of winning, and do I like their ideas? Okay, I've been a little bit critical of Elizabeth Warren, but let's say some good stuff. I think she's better than Kamala Harris. I don't like Kamala Harris as a nominee at all. Better than Cory Booker. Better than Eric Holder, even better than Joe Biden. Once again, I think Joe Biden is almost taking the Democratic Party and pushing it backward. We don't move backward in life. That's just not what we do. I mean, we need to always be moving forward and moving in a forward direction. So, again, I think she'd be better than a lot of those potential candidates. And I think she would have a better chance at winning than a lot of them. Maybe not Joe Biden, but definitely better than Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, or Eric Holder. Oh, well, so we can just see what's going to be happening with the Elizabeth Warren campaign. It's going to heat up. It's not going to die down anytime soon unless there's some major scandal. One day you're in, the next day you're out, something like that. But that's what we have going on with the Elizabeth Warren campaign. I know this is a very, very general, superficial introduction, but that's all there is to say now. And until next time, talk to you soon.